Eleanor's son Robert thought. His mother was going senile. He and his wife Camilla planned to declare her incompetent, seize her beloved vineyard, and turn it into a tacky resort. But Eleanor wasn't losing her mind. She was sharpening it. On the night of their takeover party, she signed the deed over. But not to them. "Hello ladies, Mary here. They say blood is thicker than water, but in my experience money is thicker than both. Especially when that money is buried in the soil of a vineyard that has been in the family for 3 generations. We all want to believe our children love us for who we are. We want to believe they see us as people. But sometimes they just see us as obstacles. They see us as a wall standing between them and a payout. And the scariest part is how easily they can convince you that you are the one who is crazy." The first sign of betrayal wasn't a shouted argument. It was a bowl of unseasoned oatmeal. It sat in front of me on the breakfast table, steaming and gray. My daughter-in-law Camilla placed it there with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She patted my hand, the same way you would pat a dog that you don't particularly like but have to tolerate. "Eat up, Eleanor," she said. "It is good for your digestion. The doctor said we need to be careful with your stomach." I looked at the oatmeal. I hated oatmeal. I have hated oatmeal since 1955. Camilla knew this. Robert, my son, knew this. But lately they had decided that my preferences were just symptoms of my decline. If I complained about the food, it was because I was confused. If I asked for spice, it was because I was forgetting my diet. They were slowly, systematically stripping the flavor out of my life. I picked up the spoon. My hand trembled slightly, not because I was frail, but because I was furious. I was 70 years old. I ran a business that produced 50,000 cases of wine a year. I could negotiate a distribution deal in 3 languages, but in my own kitchen, I was being treated like a toddler. Robert walked in. He was wearing a suit that was too expensive for a Tuesday. He kissed the top of my head. "Good morning, Mother," he said. "How are we feeling today?" "We, the royal we, the nurse we." "I am fine," Robert the first said. My voice was sharp. "I want to see the harvest reports." Matteo said the sugar levels in the Merlot are looking high. Robert exchanged a look with Camilla. It was a look I had seen a dozen times in the last month. A look of pity. A look that said, "There she goes again." "Mom," Robert said gently, "we talked about this. You are retired. You don't need to worry about the grapes anymore. Remember, we agreed you would relax." I didn't remember agreeing to that. In fact, I remembered explicitly telling him to keep his hands off the harvest schedule. But the way he said it, so calm, so certain, made me pause. Was I forgetting? Was I losing time? That is how the poison works. It isn't arsenic in your tea. It is doubt in your mind. They left me there with my gray mush. They went into the library and closed the heavy oak doors. They thought I was safe. They thought I was deaf. That was their first mistake. I did wear hearing aids. And yes, I had made a show of taking them out and leaving them on the sideboard before breakfast. I had complained loudly about the battery dying, but what Robert and Camilla didn't know was that I had upgraded last week. I had a second pair, smaller, discreet, and currently sitting snugly in my ear canals, turned up to maximum volume. I stood up. I didn't need my cane, but I grabbed it anyway. It was a good prop. I walked softly down the hallway. The Persian rug muffled my footsteps. I stood outside the library door. I leaned in. The voices were muffled but clear. "She is getting worse," Camilla was saying. "Did you hear her? Asking about the Merlot. She thinks it is 1998. She is just stubborn," Robert sighed. The sound of ice hitting a glass. It was 10 in the morning, and he was already drinking. "It is not stubbornness, Robert, it is dementia," Camilla snapped. "We have to face it. She is not competent. If she talks to the investors, she will blow the whole deal." Investors, my heart hammered against my ribs. There were no investors. Vance Vineyards was a family-owned operation. We didn't take outside money. That was the rule. I have the paperwork ready, Robert said. Dr. Evans is willing to sign the competency review. He just needs a few more examples of her confusion. Examples, Camilla laughed. Just give her the oatmeal again. Or hide her keys, she falls for it every time. Once we have the power of attorney, we can proceed with the sale. The Chinese developer is offering $50 million for the land. $50 million. They want to bulldoze the vines, Robert continued. Build a luxury spa and resort. They don't care about the wine. They just want the view. They were going to pave my vineyard. They were going to take the land my grandfather cleared by hand and turn it into a parking lot for tourists. And they were going to lock me away in a facility to do it. I gripped the handle of my cane. I wanted to burst in there. I wanted to beat them both with the hickory stick until they bruised. I wanted to scream that I was saner than they would ever be. But I stopped myself. If I went in there screaming, I would only prove their point. An angry old woman waving a stick. That is exactly what they wanted. That would be the final example Dr. Evans needed. No, I couldn't fight them with noise. I had to fight them with silence. I walked back to the kitchen. I sat down at the table. I picked up my spoon. I ate the oatmeal. Every last gray, tasteless bite. When Camilla came back into the kitchen, 10 minutes later, the bowl was empty. Oh, look at that, she cooed, her eyes widening in mock delight. You finished it all, good girl. Good girl. I was a CEO. I was a legend in the valley. And she spoke to me like I was a golden retriever. I feel tired, Camilla, I said, letting my voice quaver. I slumped a little in the chair. I think I need a nap. Of course, Eleanor, she said, practically pushing me toward the stairs. Go rest. Don't worry about anything. Robert and I will handle the details. I went upstairs. I closed my bedroom door. I locked it. Then I went to my closet. Behind the rows of silk blouses and tweed jackets, there was a small safe. I spun the dial. Left, right, left. It opened with a heavy click. Inside there was a burner phone. I had bought it 3 months ago when I first noticed the missing bank statements. Call it intuition. Call it paranoia. I called it insurance. I dialed Mateo. Mateo had been my foreman for 25 years. He knew the vines better than he knew his own children. He was the only man I trusted. Eleanor, his voice was rough, confused. Why are you calling on this number? Is everything okay? They are selling Mateo, I whispered. $50 million, a developer. They want to pave it. Silence on the other end. Then a low growl, Robert? And Camilla. They are trying to declare me incompetent. They want power of attorney. I will come up there, Mateo said. I will throw them off the property myself. No, I said. Physical force won't work. They have doctors, they have lawyers. If we fight them directly, they win. They need me to be crazy, Mateo, so I'm going to be crazy. What are you planning, boss? I looked at the framed photo on my dresser. It was me and my late husband, standing in front of the first vines we planted. We looked exhausted, dirty, and triumphant. I need you to contact Mr. Henderson, I said. Mr. Henderson was my personal attorney, a man so old and terrifying that even judges were afraid of him. Tell him I need a new will and a new deed transfer, but it has to be secret, backdated if possible. And the harvest, Mateo asked. We harvest, I said, but not for them. Listen carefully, Mateo. I have a list of things I need you to do. It's going to sound strange. It might even sound like I am losing my mind, but you have to trust me. I always trust you, Eleanor. Good. First, I need you to find that old irrigation map, the one from the 1920s, the one that shows the old property lines, the one that cuts through the main house? Exactly, I smiled. And Mateo, find out who Robert owes money to. He's drinking too much and he's desperate. Find the debt. I hung up. I hid the phone back in the safe. I walked to the mirror. I messed up my hair. I buttoned my cardigan wrong. I practiced a vacant stare. If they wanted a senile old woman, I would give them an Oscar-worthy performance. I would lead them right to the edge of the cliff, and when they reached for the deed, I would step aside. I unlocked the bedroom door. I walked out into the hallway. Robert the First called out, making my voice shrill and confused. "Robert, where is my husband? He promised to take me dancing." I heard them running up the stairs. The game was on. There is a special kind of power in being invisible. When people think you are weak, they stop hiding their knives. When they think you are confused, they stop whispering their secrets. They assume you are just part of the furniture. A lamp, a chair, a checkbook. Eleanor understood this better than anyone. She leaned into the invisibility. She wrapped herself in it like a warm blanket, and while her family was busy looking at the poor old woman, they completely missed the shark, swimming in the water. The next 3 days were a masterclass in acting. I lost my glasses 4 times. I called Camilla by my dead sister's name. I asked Robert when the school bus was coming to pick him up. It was exhausting, but it was working. I saw the tension leaving their shoulders. They weren't afraid of me anymore. They were just annoyed, and annoyance makes people careless. On Thursday morning, I came downstairs wearing my best Sunday hat. It was a wide-brimmed monstrosity with fake cherries on it that I hadn't worn since 1995. "Are we ready for church?" I asked, beaming at them. Robert looked up from his coffee. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. "Mom, it is Thursday," he snapped. "There is no church." "Oh," I said, my face falling. "Are you sure?" I thought the bells were ringing. "It is Thursday, Eleanor," Camilla said, cutting her toast with aggressive precision. "And we have a very important lunch meeting today. So you need to stay here. Mrs. Higgins is coming to sit with you." Mrs. Higgins was a neighbor. They paid to watch me. Basically, she sat on the couch and watched soap operas while I sat in the window and rotted. "That sounds lovely," I said. "I will just sit in the garden and pray." As soon as their Range Rover disappeared down the long driveway, I dropped the act. I took off the ridiculous hat and threw it on the chair. My posture straightened. The fog in my eyes cleared. Mrs. Higgins wasn't due for another hour. I had a window. I walked out the back door. Mateo was waiting by the tractor shed in his beat-up Ford truck. He didn't say a word. He just opened the door for me. We drove in silence to the edge of town, not to a fancy law firm, but to a small dusty office above a bakery. Mr. Henderson didn't believe in glass skyscrapers. He believed in oak desks and paper files and silence. When we walked in, Mr. Henderson was already waiting. He had a stack of documents on his desk that looked thick enough to stop a bullet. "Eleanor," he said, nodding, "you look better than I was told." "I hear I am losing my marbles, Arthur," I said, sitting down. "According to my son, I can't even tell time." Mr. Henderson didn't smile. He opened the file. "We ran the audit you requested, Eleanor. And I have to tell you, it is ugly." "How ugly?" I asked. "Robert is not just greedy," he said. "He is drowning. He has 3 mortgages on his own house. His credit cards are maxed out. But that is the small stuff." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a photocopy of a promissory note. It wasn't from a bank. It was handwritten. "He has been borrowing from private lenders," Mr. Henderson said carefully. "The kind of lenders who break kneecaps if you miss a payment. He owes $200,000, due next week." I stared at the number. 200,000. That is why he is pushing for the sale, I realized. He doesn't just want the money for a lifestyle upgrade. He needs it to stay alive. He has been telling these lenders that he already owns the vineyard, Mr. Henderson continued. He showed them the power of attorney paperwork. He told them it was a done deal. He is borrowing against assets he doesn't control yet. "And if he doesn't get the vineyard?" I asked. Mr. Henderson took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "If he doesn't get the vineyard, Eleanor, then the people he owes money to will come looking for collateral. And right now the only collateral he has offered is you. Me. He promised them the harvest revenue, Mr. Henderson said. He promised them the land. He has leveraged your life's work to cover his gambling debts. I felt a cold shiver go down my spine. It wasn't fear, it was clarity. Robert wasn't just a disappointed son. He was a cornered animal, and cornered animals bite, so we have a deadline, I said. Yes, Mr. Henderson agreed. The lenders gave him until the end of the month. That gives us 7 days. I looked at Mateo. His jaw was set like granite. 7 days, I said. That is when the harvest gala is scheduled. Camilla has been planning it for weeks, Mr. Henderson said. She sent out 500 invitations. She wants to use the gala to announce the transition of leadership. Perfect, I said. A small smile touched my lips. Perfect, Mr. Henderson asked, looking confused. Eleanor, they are planning to announce your retirement and his takeover in front of the entire town. Exactly, I said. They are inviting an audience. They are inviting witnesses. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked down at the sleepy street. They want a transition, I said. I will give them a transition. Arthur, I need you to draw up the papers we discussed, the trust. But I want a specific clause added. What clause? Mr. Henderson asked, picking up his pen. I want the deed to transfer only upon the completion of the gala, I said. And I want the new owner to be named in a sealed envelope, to be opened on stage. That is highly irregular, Mr. Henderson warned. It is theater, Arthur, I said, turning back to him. My family likes drama. I am just giving them a grand finale. The paperwork took an hour. I signed my name so many times my hand cramped, but it wasn't the shaky signature of a confused old woman. It was the firm, sharp script of a CEO executing a hostile takeover. We set up the Vance Preservation Trust. It was a bulletproof legal entity designed to do one thing: keep the land exactly as it was forever. No condos, no spas, no parking lots. And the trustee, the person who would hold the keys to the kingdom, wasn't my son. It was Mateo. I handed the pen back to Mr. Henderson. It is done, I said. Mr. Henderson looked at the stack of papers. He looked a little pale. Eleanor, he said quietly, you know that once we file this, there is no going back. You are effectively disinheriting your own child. You are leaving him to face those lenders alone. I stood up and smoothed my skirt. Robert made his bed, I said. Now he has to lie in it. Or run from it. That is his choice. My duty is to the land. Mateo drove me back to the house. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. The engine of the old truck hummed a steady rhythm. When we pulled up to the rear service entrance, I checked my watch. We had 5 minutes before Mrs. Higgins usually woke up from her afternoon nap. I slipped through the kitchen door. The house was silent. I put my muddy shoes by the door and put on my slippers. I grabbed the hat with the fake cherries. I sat down in the sunroom just as I heard the heavy footsteps of Mrs. Higgins coming down the hall. She poked her head in. Her hair was messy on one side. Oh, there you are, dear, she said, yawning. Have you been sitting there all this time? Yes, I lied. I have been watching the birds. The red ones are angry today. Mrs. Higgins rolled her eyes. That is nice, dear. An hour later, the front door slammed open. Robert and Camilla were back. They swept into the room like a hurricane of expensive perfume and excitement. They were high on adrenaline, high on the promise of $50 million. Robert walked straight to the liquor cabinet. He poured a drink. His hands were shaking, but this time it looked like excitement, not fear. It is done, he told Camilla. The developers are on board. They have the cash ready. They just need the signature on Saturday. Camilla turned to me. She had a predatory glint in her eyes. Eleanor, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. We had such a productive lunch. We were thinking about your future. My future, I repeated, blinking slowly. Yes, Robert said, coming over to kneel beside my chair. He smelled of scotch and desperation. Mom, we think it is time to make things official. The gala on Saturday, it shouldn't just be a party. It should be a celebration of you stepping down. We want you to sign the power of attorney on stage, in front of everyone. A ceremonial passing of the torch. I looked at him. I looked at the sweat beading on his forehead. He was terrified I would say no. He was terrified I would cause a scene. He needed me to be docile. He needed me to walk willingly to the slaughter. I let my lower lip tremble. I let a single tear leak out of my eye. "Oh, Robert," the first whispered. "I am so tired. I have been fighting it for so long. But maybe you are right. Maybe I am not myself anymore." Robert stopped breathing. He looked at Camilla. She nodded eagerly. "You are just tired, Mom," he said, squeezing my hand. "You deserve to rest. Let us take the burden. Let us handle the business." I looked out the window at the vineyards. The sun was setting, turning the rows of grapes into ribbons of gold. "Okay," I said softly. "I will do it. I will sign everything over on Saturday." Robert let out a breath that sounded like a sob. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you. You won't regret this." He stood up and hugged Camilla. They were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought they had talked the old woman into giving up. I smiled into my knitting. I wasn't giving up. I was winding up. I had just told them exactly what they wanted to hear. I had given them permission to invite the developers, the lenders, and the lawyers. I had given them permission to build the stage for their own execution. The hook was baited. Now I just had to wait for them to bite. There is a saying that you should never count your chickens before they hatch. But Robert and Camilla weren't just counting chickens. They were spending the money from the eggs of chickens they didn't even own yet. It is fascinating to watch greed in real time. It blinds people. It makes them sloppy. They were so convinced that Eleanor was a senile old woman that they forgot one very important rule of business. Always check the timestamp on the deed. Friday morning arrived with a knock on the door. That sounded more like a police raid than a visitor. It was barely 9 o'clock. I was sitting in the sunroom pretending to struggle with a crossword puzzle when Robert marched in. He was followed by a man I didn't recognize. A man with a shiny suit and eyes that darted around the room like he was looking for silver to steal. "Mom, this is Mr. Slattery," Robert said loudly. "He is a notary public. He is here to help us with some paperwork for the gala tomorrow." I lowered my reading glasses. A notary, on a Friday morning. They were trying to get the legal work done early, so the party could just be a victory lap. "Hello, Mr. Slattery," I said, giving him my best confused smile. "Are you here to fix the television? The volume is stuck." Mr. Slattery chuckled nervously. "No, ma'am. Just here to witness a signature. It won't take a minute." Camilla breezed in behind them. She was carrying a bottle of champagne. It was 10 in the morning. "Let's get this done," she said, setting 2 glasses down on the coffee table. "Then we can celebrate." Robert placed a thick stack of documents on the table in front of me. He flipped to the back page. He didn't offer to let me read them. He just pointed to the line marked grantor. "Just sign right here, Mom," Robert said. "It is just the insurance updates we talked about. Remember, to keep the vines safe." I looked at the paper. It wasn't insurance updates. It was a transfer of deed. It was a document giving Robert Vance full legal ownership of the house, the land, and the business effective immediately. If I signed this, I was homeless. If I signed this, I was destitute, or at least that is what they thought. What they didn't know was that 24 hours ago, at Mr. Henderson's dusty office, I had already signed a different document. I had transferred every acre, every vine, and every brick of the main house into the Vance Preservation Trust. Technically speaking, Eleanor Vance didn't own the vineyard anymore. The trust did. So if I signed Robert's paper now, it was worthless. It was like signing a deed to the moon. You can sign it all you want, but you can't give away what you don't have. I looked at Robert. He was sweating. His hands were clenched at his sides. He needed this signature like he needed oxygen. If he didn't get it, the loan sharks were going to break his legs. I picked up the pen. I let my hand shake. "Is this for the cable bill?" I asked, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Yes, Mom," Robert said through gritted teeth. "It is for the cable. Just sign it." I hesitated. I let the pen hover over the paper. I watched Camilla hold her breath. I watched Mr. Slattery check his watch. "Okay," I said, "if you say so, dear." I pressed the pen to the paper. I wrote my name, Eleanor Vance. Robert snatched the paper away before the ink was dry. He handed it to Mr. Slattery, who stamped it with a heavy thud. "Done," Robert exhaled. "It is done." He looked at Camilla. They both broke into wide, terrifying smiles. They hugged each other right in front of me. They didn't hug me. They didn't thank me. They just hugged the paper. I ordered the lobster, Camilla squealed, and the vintage champagne. "We are going to be rich, Robert. Rich." I went back to my crossword puzzle. They didn't even wait for Mr. Slattery to leave before they started celebrating. They popped the cork on the champagne. Foam spilled onto my antique rug. They didn't care. Why would they care about a rug when they were about to sell the house for $50 million? They thought they had just pulled off the heist of the century. They thought they had tricked a helpless old woman. They had no idea that the ink on that page was worth less than the napkin Camilla was using to wipe her mouth. The moment the champagne popped, I ceased to exist. Before the signature, I was mother, the fragile bird needing protection. The second the notary placed the document in his leather satchel and walked out the door, I became furniture. Robert didn't pour me a glass of champagne. Camilla didn't ask if I was tired. Jason turned up the music on his phone, blasting some bass-heavy rap song that rattled the crystal in the cabinets. So the developer said, loosening his tie and looking at Robert, "Now that you have control, when can we break ground?" "My crew is ready Monday." "Give us a week," Robert said, leaning back in my husband's chair, putting his feet up on the desk. "We need to clear the house. Move the assets to a facility. Then you can flatten it." Move the assets. He meant me. I stood up slowly. No one noticed. I walked out of the living room and up the stairs. I went to my balcony and sat in the dark. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in hubris. Because Robert believed he held the power of attorney, he believed he had access to the Vineyard's corporate accounts. He didn't check the balance. He just started writing checks against the future sale. On Saturday morning, a flatbed truck arrived. It was carrying a bright yellow Lamborghini Urus. Jason ran out of the house screaming, "It's here. Dad, you actually did it. You're the heir to an empire, son," Robert yelled from the porch, holding a Bloody Mary. "You should drive like one." An hour later, a van from Cartier arrived. Camilla spent 40 minutes signing for packages. When she came out, she was wearing a diamond necklace that looked heavy enough to sink a small boat. "It's an investment," she told Robert, preening in the hallway mirror. And then the phone call started. I listened from my room. Robert was on the phone with Rocco the loan shark. "Rocco, listen," Robert said. His voice was slurred. "I need the cash wire today. I bought the kid a car and I have contractors to pay. Yes, the document is signed. The notary took it to the county clerk this morning. It's a done deal. I'm the owner. Send the 200 grand. He paused. "Yes, I know the terms," Robert said, his voice tightening slightly. "Double the vig if I'm late." "I won't be late. The Chinese buyers are wiring 50 million next week. You'll get your money." He hung up. He looked pale for a second, then shook it off and took another drink. He had just borrowed $200,000 from the mob, putting up a vineyard he didn't own as collateral. Sunday night, they held a family meeting in the dining room. They didn't invite me. I ate my bland oatmeal in the kitchen while they plotted. "We need to make it official," Camilla said. "A transition party. A gala. We invite the whole valley. We announce Robert as the new CEO and Eleanor's retirement. Smart Robert agreed it legitimizes everything if we announce it in front of the mayor and the other winery owners. No one can question it later. We'll do it Saturday, Camilla said. The Golden Gala. I'll hire the caterers. We'll spend $50,000. Make it look lavish. Do it, Robert said. Put it on the corporate card. I smiled into my oatmeal. The corporate card, the one connected to the operating account. What Robert didn't know was that Matteo, my new trustee, had frozen that account on Friday night, 5 minutes after the notary left. When Camilla tried to pay the caterers tomorrow, the card would decline. When Robert tried to pay the contractor, the check would bounce. But the loan shark's money? That cash wire would hit Robert's personal account, and he would spend it all on the party, the car, and the diamonds. He was about to spend $200,000 of mob money on a party to celebrate a victory that didn't exist. I washed my bowl. I walked past the dining room. "Oh, Eleanor," Camilla said, spotting me. "We're having a little party on Saturday. You should come down. We're going to make a speech about you." "That sounds lovely," I said, giving her my best senile smile. "Will there be lemonade?" "Yes," Camilla laughed cruelly. "Lots of lemonade." I went upstairs. I texted Matteo. "Eleanor, the gala is Saturday. Bring the projector, Matteo, and the sheriff?" "Eleanor, yes, and the sheriff. There is nothing quite like a party thrown with stolen money. The champagne tastes a little more bitter, the laughter is a little too loud, and the host sweats a little too much." Robert and Camilla threw the party of the century to celebrate their theft, but they forgot one thing. When you invite the entire town to witness your victory, you are also inviting them to witness your execution. Saturday night arrived, and Vance Vineyards had been transformed into a spectacle. Camilla had outdone herself. There were white tents pitched between the vines, crystal chandeliers hanging from the oak trees, and a string quartet playing Mozart near the tasting room. It looked less like a vineyard and more like a circus for the rich. I watched from my bedroom window as the guests arrived. The mayor was there. The owners of the neighboring vineyards, people I had known for 40 years, were there. The Chinese developer was there, shaking hands with Robert near the bar. I put on my dress. I had chosen a midnight blue silk gown. It was sharp, structural, and commanding. I put on my diamond earrings, the real ones, not the paste replicas Camilla had tried to swap out in my jewelry box yesterday. Downstairs, the cracks in the facade were already showing. I lingered at the top of the stairs, listening. Near the kitchen, Robert was arguing with the head caterer. "What do you mean declined?" Robert hissed. "Run it again, it's a corporate black card. It has no limit." "I ran it 3 times, Mr. Vance," the caterer said, looking annoyed. "Code 05, do not honor. If you want the lobster served, I need payment now." "Fine," Robert shouted. He pulled a thick envelope out of his jacket pocket. It was the cash from Rocco. The loan shark money. He peeled off a stack of hundreds. "Here. Take it. Just serve the food." He was paying for lobster with blood money. I descended the stairs. Camilla spotted me first. She rushed over, looking frantic. She was wearing the emerald necklace she had bought with the credit card that was about to be canceled. "Eleanor," she whispered, grabbing my arm hard. "You're supposed to be sitting in the corner. We set up a nice chair for you by the heater." "I just wanted to see the people," I said, giving her a vacant smile. "Are those my friends?" Yes, she steered me toward a wingback chair in the shadows. "Just sit here. Don't talk to anyone. If you get confused, just wave." I sat, I waited. The party swirled around me. People glanced at me with pity. I heard whispers. "Poor Eleanor," Mrs. Gable from the neighboring winery said. "Robert says she doesn't even know what year it is." "Tragic," her husband agreed. "But at least Robert is stepping up. He has big plans." At 8 p.m. the music stopped. Robert tapped a spoon against his glass. He stood on a raised platform in the center of the room. A spotlight hit him. "Welcome, friends, neighbors, distinguished guests," Robert boomed. He looked the part of the CEO. Tan, smiling, confident. "Tonight is a bittersweet night. We are here to celebrate the legacy of my mother, Eleanor Vance." He gestured to me in the corner. The spotlight swung to my face. I blinked, looking frail. "For 40 years she led this company," Robert continued. "But as many of you know, time waits for no one. Due to her declining health, Mother has decided to step down. She has entrusted the future of Vance Vineyards to me." There was applause, polite, hesitant applause. The valley respected me. They weren't sure about him. And Robert added, his voice rising, "I am thrilled to announce a new era. We are partnering with international investors to transform this land into a world-class wine resort. We will be breaking ground next month." A murmur went through the crowd. A resort? That meant construction, traffic, noise. The neighbors exchanged worried looks. So Robert raised his glass to Eleanor Vance. "May she enjoy her well-earned rest." To Eleanor, the crowd echoed. Robert smiled. He thought he had done it. He thought the transition was complete. I stood up. I didn't struggle to rise. I didn't use the armrests. I stood up with the posture of a queen. I walked out of the shadows. I walked straight toward the stage. Robert the First called out. My voice wasn't weak. It projected across the lawn. Robert froze. He looked terrified. "Mom? Mom, sit down. You're confused." "I don't think so," I said. I climbed the stairs to the stage. I took the microphone from his hand. He was too shocked to stop me. I looked out at the crowd. I looked at the mayor. I looked at the developer. I looked at my son. "Thank you for the toast," Robert the First said. The speakers carried my voice, crisp and clear. "But I think there has been a misunderstanding." "Mom, please," Camilla rushed the stage. "She's having an episode. Someone help her." "I am not having an episode, Camilla," I snapped. I turned to look at her. "And take off my necklace. You look ridiculous." The crowd gasped. I turned back to the audience. "My son tells you I have dementia," I said, calm, cool, deadly. "He tells you I am confused. He tells you I signed a power of attorney, giving him control of this estate." I reached into my purse. I pulled out the black remote for the audio system Mateo had set up. "But before we celebrate this new era," I said, "I think you should all hear how this transition actually happened." I pressed the button. The speakers crackled for a split second, a sharp burst of static that made everyone flinch. Then Robert's voice boomed across the lawn. Louder than the string quartet. Louder than his lies. 50 million, Camilla. The appraisal is right here, we sell. I already have a broker. They'll bulldoze the vines and put up a resort. The crowd went deadly silent. The mayor's mouth fell open. Mrs. Gable dropped her champagne flute. It shattered on the patio stones, but no one looked down. Robert turned the color of ash. He lunged for me. "Turn it off, give me that." But before he could reach me, a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. It was Mateo. My foreman had emerged from the shadows behind the stage, wearing his Sunday suit and a look of absolute granite. He held Robert back with one arm. I didn't flinch. I let the recording continue. "The loan sharks are calling Robert. If we don't have the 100 grand by next Friday, I'll tell them the vineyard is secured. Once they know I'm the heir to a $50 million estate, they'll extend the credit." I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with shock and judgment. I looked at the Chinese developer standing near the bar. He set his drink down on a table. He looked at Robert with cold, businesslike disgust, then turned and walked straight to his car without a word. The deal was dead. "It's fake," Robert screamed, his voice cracking. He looked wild, sweating under the stage lights. "She manipulated it. It's AI. She's crazy, don't you see? She's trying to ruin me. I asked into the microphone, am I the one who spent $200,000 of borrowed money on a party tonight, Robert? Money you borrowed from a man named Rocco? Robert froze, his eyes went wide. He realized I knew everything. But it doesn't matter, I continued, my voice calm and steady, because you can't sell this vineyard, Robert. You don't own it. I have the power of attorney, Robert yelled, pulling the crumpled document from his jacket pocket. I signed it Friday. I have control. Read the header, Robert the First said. He looked at the paper. He squinted. Transfer of assets, he whispered. Irrevocable trust. You didn't sign a power of attorney, I explained to the crowd, breaking the fourth wall of his delusion. You signed a document transferring ownership of Vance Vineyards, the house and all land, into the Vance Preservation Trust. And you are not the trustee. I pointed to Matteo. Matteo, as I said, my foreman, the man who actually knows how to grow grapes. He holds the keys, he controls the accounts, and thanks to a specific clause in that document, known as the bad boy provision, any beneficiary who attempts to declare the grantor incompetent is automatically disinherited. I took a step closer to him. You didn't just give the vineyard away, Robert. You disinherited yourself. You, Camilla, and Jason get nothing. Zero. The trust is locked. Camilla let out a shriek. You witch, you tricked us. I tested you, I corrected. And you failed. Camilla looked around. She saw the socialite wives staring at her. She saw the jewelry store owner whispering to the sheriff. She realized her social standing had just evaporated. The sheriff, I nodded to the back of the lawn. Sheriff Miller walked forward. He wasn't there to arrest them, not yet. But he was there to serve the eviction notice Matteo had filed that afternoon. Robert Vance, the sheriff said, stepping onto the stage, I have a court order here. You and your family are trespassing on trust property. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. Trespassing, Jason yelled from the crowd. We live here. Not anymore, I said. Robert looked at me. The reality was crashing down on him. The vineyard was gone. The $50 million was a fantasy. But the debt? The debt to Rocco was very, very real. Mom, Robert whispered, and this time the fear was genuine. Mom, you don't understand. Rocco, if I don't pay him, he's going to kill me. I spent the money on the car. On the party. I don't have it. I know, I said. I heard the tape. You have to help me, he begged, tears streaming down his face. Please just pay him off. Then I'll go, I promise. I looked at my son. I remembered the little boy who used to catch frogs in the creek. I remembered the teenager who crashed his first car and cried in my arms. But then I looked at the man who had planned to lock me in a facility and bulldoze my life's work. I am retired, Robert, I said coldly, and the trust doesn't cover gambling debts. I turned my back on him. Sheriff, I said, please escort these guests off the property. The party is over. They say you reap what you sow. For 40 years, Eleanor sowed hard work, patience, and excellence. She earned her harvest. Her family, on the other hand, sowed greed, deceit, and arrogance. And tonight, they were about to harvest a crop of absolute ruin. The party was over. The lights were coming on. And there was nowhere left to hide. The exodus was humiliating. It wasn't a quiet departure. It was a spectacle. Sheriff Miller stood by the front gate with his arms crossed. He wasn't alone. 2 deputies were waiting by the driveway to ensure that nothing belonging to the trust left the property. I stood on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, watching them scramble. Camilla was the first to crack. She was trying to walk to the Range Rover with a Louis Vuitton suitcase she had hastily packed. Mrs. Vance, a deputy, stepped forward. I need to check that bag. This is my personal property, Camilla shrieked. You can't search me. Actually, I called out from the porch. The corporate credit card paid for that luggage last week, along with the clothes inside it. And the necklace you are wearing. Camilla froze. Her hand went to her throat. The emeralds glittered under the floodlights. Take it off, Camilla, I said. Unless you want to be charged with grand larceny. She looked at Robert for help. Robert was sitting on the curb, head in his hands, weeping. He couldn't help anyone. With a scream of pure rage, Camilla unclasped the necklace. She threw it at the deputy. She threw the suitcase on the ground. She got into the car with nothing but the dress on her back and her purse. Then it was Jason's turn. He was standing next to the yellow Lamborghini. He looked like a lost child. Grandma, he said, looking up at me. Can I at least take the car? I mean, it's already paid for. Dad said it was a gift. Dad lied, I said. Dad paid the down payment with borrowed money. The dealership will be here in the morning to repossess it. If you want a ride, get in the Range Rover with your mother. Jason kicked the tire of the Lamborghini. He cursed. He spit on the ground. Then he trudged over to his parents' car. Finally, Robert stood up. He looked at the house. He looked at the vineyard. He looked at me. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. Rocco is going to kill me, he whispered. He's really going to kill me. I doubt it, I said calmly. Rocco is a businessman. Dead men don't pay debts. He'll just make you work for it. You have a law degree, Robert. Maybe you can do his taxes. Or wash his cars. You'll figure it out. I'm your son, he choked out. And I'm your mother, I said. Which is why I'm letting you leave, without pressing charges for the attempted fraud. That is my final gift to you. Don't waste it. Robert nodded slowly. He understood. This was mercy. It didn't feel like it, but it was. He got into the driver's seat of the Range Rover. He started the engine. I watched the taillights disappear down the long winding driveway. I watched until they turned onto the main road and vanished into the night. The guests had all gone. The caterers were packing up the uneaten lobster. The string quartet had packed their cellos. Matteo walked up the steps and stood beside me. It's quiet, he said. It's peaceful, I corrected. What do you want to do about the harvest? Matteo asked. We start picking next week. We pick, I said. We make the best vintage we have ever produced. And Matteo? Yes, Eleanor? Put the emerald necklace in the safe, I said. We'll auction it off for charity next month. I think the local memory care center could use a donation. Matteo smiled. Yes, ma'am. 6 months have passed since the night of the Golden Gala. The seasons have turned, and the vines have gone dormant for the winter. Resting just like I intend to. I am sitting on the terrace of a small villa in Tuscany. It turns out that when you don't have to support a leeching son, a shopaholic daughter-in-law, and a Lamborghini-driving grandson, your retirement budget stretches quite a bit further. I am drinking a glass of Chianti, and for the first time in 10 years, I am not worrying about the sugar levels in the soil or the price of barrels. I got a letter from Matteo yesterday. He is running the trust beautifully. The harvest was record-breaking. He even sent me a photo of the new label. It features a simple drawing of an old oak tree standing firm against a storm. A nice touch. As for Robert, the grapevine is efficient. I hear he is working as a junior paralegal for a bankruptcy attorney in the next county over. It is humble work, filing papers for people who made the same mistakes he did. He lives in a small apartment above a laundromat. Rocco the loan shark takes 40% of his paycheck every Friday. It will take him 10 years to pay off the debt, but he is alive. And for the first time in his life, he is actually earning his keep. Camilla? She didn't last a month in the apartment. She filed for divorce as soon as the money ran out. I heard she moved back in with her parents in Florida. I pity them. Jason is working at a car wash. He posted a picture online of himself washing a Lamborghini. The caption said grinding. I suppose he is finally learning the value of $1, even if he has to scrub it off a bumper first. I took a sip of the wine. It was dry, robust, and complex. Just like life. I used to think that my legacy was the land. I thought my job was to pass the torch to my bloodline, no matter how unworthy they were. But I realized that was vanity. My legacy isn't my DNA. My legacy is the work. It is the integrity of the soil. It is the preservation of something beautiful against the encroaching ugliness of greed. I saved the vineyard. I saved myself. And in a strange, painful way, I think I might have even saved Robert. By cutting him off, I forced him to finally grow up. I put the glass down. The sun was setting over the Italian hills. I had a cooking class in the morning and a tour of an olive grove in the afternoon. I wasn't an old woman waiting to die. I was a woman who had just started living. And there you have it, ladies. Eleanor Vance didn't just win. She redefined the game. She showed us that just because you have gray hair doesn't mean you have lost your edge. In fact, it usually means you have sharpened it. Her family saw a wrinkled face and assumed weakness. They assumed dementia. They assumed she was a bland oatmeal kind of woman. But they forgot that oatmeal is what sustains you when the sugar crash hits. And Eleanor was the only one with the stamina to survive the storm. So here's my question for you tonight. Have you ever had to play dumb just to see what people were really planning? Have you ever let someone think they were winning just so you could lead them into a trap? Let me know in the comments. And if you have a Robert or a Camilla in your life who is eyeing your china cabinet a little too greedily, maybe it's time to check your own estate planning, or at least install a hidden camera or two. If you enjoyed watching Eleanor serve that cold dish of revenge, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories. This is Mary signing off. Stay sharp, stay hidden, and never ever sign a document before you read the fine print.